In this video, I want to discuss the idea of alternatives to retinol. Lately, I've seen not only videos, a lot of content, digital at large, questioning safety of retinol, how much retinol is ethical as an ingredient, but mostly an idea that there are A, B, C specific ingredients which can become an alternative to retinol. Let's talk. I'm always questioning and raising the doubt, what is that skin wanted before marketing got in the way. I work in the skincare industry for 30 years now, more or less, more than less, the last 15 in product development. So let's jump directly to our topic, which is alternatives to retinol. I just posted this week on Instagram exactly mentioning bakuchiol as an alternative and what I really think right and wrong. We will address it in this video for sure. Then I've watched this week's video, or last week's, I'm not sure, from Dr. Dre. The video you can see here. It's an interesting video that you can eventually watch. Maybe you already follow Dr. Dre's channel. There is always valuable information there, and don't expect me here to do too much of a reaction video, even though I took some notes from those alternatives to retinol. So what is my position and my true belief about this whole story? First, to say that I'm a big fan of retinol. If you follow the channel, you know that already. Speaking larger even than retinol, of retinoids and other forms of vitamin A. Why? Because biologically they serve a pathway which is critical for tissue renewal and for tissue formation, which is cellular differentiation. Only retinoids can facilitate cellular differentiation. Without cellular differentiation, you don't have an augmentation on cellular turnover, on younger baby cells forming in the skin. That's why I have an issue with all these ideas of alternatives to retinol. So we're talking about eventually people who tried to use retinol and their skin cannot tolerate it. We can talk about pregnancy, where all forms of vitamin A, both topical and systemic without a doctor assistance, are not advised. But by the way, how long is that pregnancy going to take? 9 months, less than 9 months? I would not necessarily rush into finding alternatives to anything. You can, for 9 months, absolutely skip all retinoids as you should, and you don't need to get obsessed with finding alternatives because of pregnancy. If this is a topic which is important to you, there is a past video I put together which is only about ingredients which are okay, green light during pregnancy. So what I was saying, these are the two situations where eventually you could look for an alternative to retinol. You cannot tolerate despite you've tried, or you are pregnant or consider getting pregnant. So I have to say, the first, which is you have not tolerated well retinol. And that's the first reason why I have a bit of a question mark about this idea of alternatives, simply because I think more energy should be put into finding the right level, the right tolerance, the right mix that works for your skin. There are plenty concentrations which begin with very low fraction retinol concentrations. So nobody's telling you that you need to go for the 0.5 above till 1% as over-the-counter maximum, or prescription levels above. So there are for sure possibilities. I'll show you one, actually Swissline, which is here, this golden little jar, which is the Youth Age Intelligence Youth Booster. It contains 0.4 retinol, and it's a very slow release retinol. So also the way retinol is present in the formula can alter the way your skin adapts more easily or less easily. So encapsulation, in this case, is cyclodextrins, which are basically structures of sugar amino acids which also used in medicine to make pills and to make the active ingredient in the medication be released more gradually and not all in one shot. So exactly the same technology can be used in skincare, and there are several brands going in this direction. So that's message number one, as I said in the beginning, because I think there is nothing that works like vitamin A, there is nothing that works like retinol. Maybe more energy should be put into best ways to adapt. Also a video from the past here in the channel, exactly how to better adapt, some ideas to better adapt to the use of retinol. There is a bit of a misunderstanding because a lot of the retinol in the past decades was actually an animal-based ingredient, which was coming from liver, because that's where mammals produce their vitamin C is at that level. So that's an organ which is very rich in vitamin A. There was also retinol coming from eggs. Nowadays, and that's the post I had on Instagram, 90% or even more, I'm just throwing a number to the air, but I mean a bulldozer majority of retinol, the one we use at Swissline for sure, it's lab produced, so it's synthetic. It's a very good example of when natural is not always better than synthetic or lab built. A lot of topical vitamins are endlessly better if they are synthetically produced other than coming from natural sources. If you think systemically, then probably the logic is exactly the other way around. The natural, more complex, which your digestive tract will do their biotechnology and the enzymes, your microbiome are going to take very interesting fractions from more complex molecules. But topically, you want more stability, you want more reliability, and not vitamin A, which comes from either carotenoids, so as the vegan alternative, or from animals. So it's still vegan, but vegan synthetic, lab-built, as I like to call them. So first thing to take also out of the way, when you think that retinol it's an animal ingredient, don't be deceived, because as I say, the majority, and you have to consult each brand for their statement, but there are a lot of raw materials in the family of retinoids which are produced in laboratory, very stable and much more reliable. So what's my issue with this idea of alternatives? So Dr. Dre's video, it's actually for me the crisp, perfect example, because I can see her effort to find alternatives which provide some of the functions that retinol provides, but none of them tick that crucial box I said from the very beginning, because I'm such an obsessed guy with the skin biology, how skin is meant to be, how skin is meant to function. So cellular differentiation, it's something that none of the other ingredients. So Dr. Dre proposes as alternatives glycolic acid, which has, as she says and as she knows, so nothing of what I'm saying, it's questioning the content of this exact video from Dr. Dre. What I question, it's the frame, the logic behind trying to find alternatives at all costs, in the sense that retinol would be something wicked or something questionable. So glycolic acid, as you know, the alpha hydroxy acids, they will speed up the cellular turnover, but it's much more from an outside-in perspective. So they will dissolve desmosomes, so the bonds of keratin formation on the skin surface. They shed off dead cells. Collagen, it's retinol, it's not, I'm always thinking of collagen because it's very important for us, Swissline. So I think maybe in the video I already made this mistake twice. So I'm talking clearly about retinol. The way retinol speeds up cellular turnover, it's not from outside in, it's not a real peeling, exfoliating action. It's much more pushing cells from bottom up. So actually it thickens the epidermis. If anything, it doesn't make your epidermis thinner, it makes it thicker in the structure, in the deeper layers. That's why if you find your right rhythm, as I also in the channel many times said, associating glycolic acid to retinol, not necessarily exactly the same time, but having them in the same routine, alternating, finding your rhythm, it's the best way to speed up cellular turnover and exfoliation. Then niacinamide, it's another of the alternatives in Dr. Dre's video. I think you will all agree there are benefits in the brightening, in the pigmentation side, refining the pores, which can be similar, but again, it's a very different pathway, and they happen, for instance, the reduction on the pores, visibility, it's really something that in retinol, it's much deeper to above, and you really renew texture much more than with niacinamide. Vitamin C, also we talk about different things, of course, more than alternatives. They should be complementary, and you should actually go for both vitamin C and retinol. You just need to find your rhythm and the right products for you. Then she mentions topical estrogen. I will leave this totally out. She's a doctor, I'm not. I don't mess up with topical estrogens. And azelaic acid, which, if anything, has a slightly anti-inflammatory, exfoliating action, a lovely ingredient, an ingredient we don't use much in Switzerland due to regulatory reasons, but an ingredient I personally like very much. And then, curious enough, we have the big elephant in the room, which is the reason why I did the post early this week, which is this obsession with bakuchiol as an alternative to retinol. And here, I have to say, it warmed my heart that Dr. Dre left it out. I don't know if she left it out simply because she forgot about it, or if she, a bit like me in this sense, it's getting enough of this idea that bakuchiol is the last glass of water in the desert if you can't do retinol. And I want to tell you from a product development perspective how these things come up so often in the industry. You do a test with an ingredient instead of a placebo, and you do a test with another ingredient that you want maybe to push forward. And already in the testing, you can have a narrow window, just a small panel of users, and you have an empirical self-assessment data, which simply these people are going to be asked after X time using a product with retinol, X time using a product, in this case with bakuchiol, if they have seen similar results. And you can, and I'm not saying bakuchiol it's a bad ingredient. I even brought one product I like very much from Paula's Choice, just to give you an example. So this is tranexamic acid and bakuchiol, discoloration repair serum. If you dwell on pigmentation and melasma type of problems, this is definitely an interesting product for you. At Swissline, we also have Peace Booster with the tranexamic acid. We play more on the alpha-arbutin with the Evenus Booster, two more or less working on the same type of pathway. But just to say that I have nothing against bakuchiol, but I have to say it's really enough of this nonsense. When you compare studies saying empirically very often, simply empirically, do you agree with this? Do you agree with that? X number of people said yes, X number of people said no. There are studies which prove bakuchiol effect on boosting collagen synthesis, but I come back to the same. How is the skin, its biology working? For cellular renewal, you need cellular differentiation. I haven't seen a single study which foresees that bakuchiol can have this specific effect. I'm very doubtful it does, because that's vitamin A in our body, in all our organs, who is doing that job. And also, let's not forget about something, which is the long-term benefits of retinol. And that's exactly where I get more upset with this idea that bakuchiol is an alternative to retinol, because the real beauty of retinol, it's that it's a marathon ingredient. It's not a sprint ingredient. So I don't really care that much what happens with retinol after 1 month or two. Because what really matters is what happens with retinol after 6 months, after 1 year, after 2 years, after 5 years of continued use of retinol. And that's what someone needs to bring attention to. Are we in this industry just running for the 1 month, 2 months influencer use of the product? Are we talking about a product which we review after a few days of usage? Or are we talking the most evidence-backed ingredient in the whole world, the ingredient having decades and decades of studies and really understanding how it works, what it does? And one ingredient that I would tell you, being 51 years old, I have used non-stop probably for the last 10, 15 years, and I'm first one to say that I do believe some of my skin texture, which I don't think is very bad for a person 51 years old, I owe to consistent use of retinol together with many other tools in the box. So that's what I wanted to say, is just to tell you I have nothing against bakuchiol. I have everything against the idea that it's an alternative to retinol in the sense that it delivers the same effect. Is it a good ingredient? Yes, it's a good ingredient. All those ingredients Dr. Dre mentioned are also good ingredients, which, by the way, I keep in my toolbox and in my mix. I'm not saying retinol goes alone, and actually niacinamide can be a good friend to help desensitize tranexamic acid as well, to address some temporary redness when you adapt to retinol. So I hope this was useful. It's more to challenge the point of view that things can be alternatives all the way. Certain things, there are no alternatives to them. Like maybe the most important and relevant things in life, there are no alternatives. So put your energy on understanding how you can integrate retinoids in your skincare, unless you're pregnant or considering getting pregnant, and that would be my advice. There will be few human beings, I believe, who cannot have any level of retinoid in their skincare. I think it's always possible to have different retinoids, even if it's retinyl palmitate, which is an ester, very, very soft, which has been around in the industry for decades and decades. If nothing else, at least keep that ester of vitamin A in your skincare. So I hope, again, this was useful. Saying goodbye and hope to see you next week, and promise to be a bit more regular again on my YouTube as much as possible. Take care and say no to boring skincare.